the civil rights movement of 1865 to 1870, really kind of on there, right? It was met with barbaric violence and terrorism that was committed by Southern whites against freedmen and their white allies, right? It was unbelievable. People know of the Tulsa massacre, right? Tulsa massacre. That was just one of many. Most people don't, in the mainstream, don't know about Colfax in 1872, 73, right? And Tiffany has ancestors that lived in that area, in which there was a wholesale massacre of Black Republicans and white Republicans. And that was common. And then not just that, the utter social pressure that was put on white allies who were advocating for the principles of America.
Lynchings were common, and people would take pictures. There were postcards of lynchings. People would go, and that's the level of barbarism that was happening. People would lynch a Black man
and women,
or woman or child, and then take a group photo in front, and it would be like a big picnic was happening, like a big, wonderful event. Only there's a dead person hanging from a tree, and they're taking postcard pictures and sending them to their friends as hey, look at this great thing we did.
Yeah, and it's not just...
And it was very common.
Yeah.
The social pressure, the social mores around that. I mean, what does that say to the people that are being oppressed? What does that say to the people that are white and that sympathize with Black people? Hey, this could be you, or your wife or your kid.
Yeah.
And we think this is okay. This is fine. This is, this is what we do on Sunday after church.
Yep. And we bring that up, we bring that up to say we have made progress so much in America, and the opportunities that we have and the ability not just to vote, but to participate in the political process. And our ancestors, the Freedmen, were participating in the process, the political process.
So they were by participating, then what we mean is that they were actually participating in the primaries. They were putting up people to vote, putting up candidates, putting together political platforms and ideas about what they wanted to see happening in their community, and then putting those strategies and thoughts into action with their political candidates, advocating for them.
Yeah, and so there actually is Norris, I would say, they called him Wright Kooning, was African-American who was over the Republican Party here in Texas, over the local Republican Party in Texas. And that tells us he was involved in the process. And because he was involved in the process, right, like, for example, in the Colfax massacre that happened in 1873, right? He was able to get, at that time, President Grant to bring in federal troops and declare martial law and shut it down, right? They were able to call in and bring in those troops and secure those troops to come in just to have people adhere to and live the American values. So when Tiff and I say we are living in the America of our ancestors' dreams, that's what we mean by that, is that we have the right to participate, get involved, and not have our vote minimized and monopolized by one party, AKA the Democratic Party.
Well, I say that because we can go and vote and not have violence demonstrated against us. You can go and express, just like we're expressing right now, a difference in opinion, and not have to worry about somebody coming to our house and hanging me and you and our kids.
That is true. Someone can come to our house, right? But there's an AR. We have something for you if you decide that's something you want to do.
But I mean, we're not living in that same time.
And there's not this, and there is not this. People just do not understand the idea of living under a perpetual threat of violence, to where it's normal, to where I remember talking to your grandmother, and she was telling the story of this white man in Beaumont disrespecting her, and then her husband just essentially beating the crap out of him, right? And they had to pack up and leave.
Yes, that's how we ended. That's how the Applins ended up in California,
right? And she talks about it as if, that was part of what you had to do then.
Yeah, it was part of what you had to do.
And I remember your grandfather in the early 2000s was like, Kevin.
I mean, if you stood up for yourself,
if you stood up for yourself,
you were gonna have to, you could whip somebody's behind, but you were gonna, if the behind you whipped was white, you were gonna have to pack up and roll, because they were gonna try to come and kill you.
Yeah, and so when we say we live in the America of our ancestors' dreams, we live in the America where we don't have the threat of violence, right?
And let's preface this. They were going to, it wasn't they might try to come and kill you. They would, and they were free to do so. And they would be backed up by the police and everybody else.
Yeah, and so, and now I'm thinking about what the comments are going to be in the comment section on our YouTube thing. That's happening today, right? Well, we can actually do something about that. And I can give you examples where people are having processes and procedures changed. You can actually have something done about that by simply getting involved.
And that's what we're advocating.
And that's what we're advocating. We don't want you to simply vote Republican. We want you to participate Republican and be involved in the party in and throughout, right? Because most people don't realize how the system itself works in choosing the primaries. So when we say we live in the country, we live in the America of our ancestors' dreams, we have full authority and backing, not just by law, but by our white neighbors and the support of our white neighbors without them having to go through, one, the threat of violence, two, social pressure that you and I would experience if we were in that time, right? Mm-hmm. So, living in the America of our ancestors' dreams has responsibility with it, which means we have to get involved, which means we have to step up and get involved. And we have to not only exercise our right to vote, but also exercise participation in the political process and not be, we have weakened our vote as a group because it is monopolized by a group.
Well, I think our authority is being monopolized by fringe groups. You see on the left and on the right, you've got these extremists. And most people are somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. But if you have everybody voting in only one party, mm-hmm. and there's not representation in both parties, there has to be representation. In numbers, in both parties. If there is not, you've got a problem. You've got one-sided. Because I don't have to do anything for you if I know that you're, if it's a dating situation or
oh, you're referring to my booty call again. I like it.
No, I'm not. If we're talking about a work situation and a person, you got a person working on, and they only work on one side of a problem, well then their ideology isn't going to be seen on the other side of the problem because nobody's there.
Yeah.
Nobody's there working on it. So, what I'm advocating is that we have a big influx of African Americans in the Republican Party, people who are thinking and voting with a mindset that is for economic development, for freedom, opportunity, growth, and progress
For black people.
black neighborhoods, because that benefits the entire nation, and it benefits the entire community.
It does.
When you see that.
Yeah, and so when we say we want black people with a B-1 perspective who are going to come in and abdicate for black people, who are going to sit at the seats of power and be in the discussions. And we have to be able to come in large numbers, right? Where we can say, no, we have in district, whatever the particular district is, we can sway votes. And at the end of the day,
it's all about voting blocks.
It is.
That at the end of the day, it is always the same thing when it comes down to the political process that is democracy with a little d, and that is voting blocks. Do you have enough people to sway a race? Do you have enough people to influence a position that you're looking to influence? That's what this boils down to.
Yep. And we have to come in and we have to take the narrative away from the leftists, right, and the lily white Republicans, because those are the two extremes. The leftists,
from the extreme left and from the extreme right.
And I bring up lily white because that's saying that we acknowledge there are racist and racism in the party, but there also is in the Democratic Party.
Lily white is what the
that's a historical
racists
reference.
Called themselves during Reconstruction,
during
the first civil rights movement in the United States.
Yeah. And so people like that are in the party, but there are a lot of...
They came springing up after 1865 to 1870 when we saw such a big shift. You know, I want to say the numbers like 2,000 African Americans were
elected.
2,000 freedmen were, and freedmen sympathizers were elected.
Yeah.
Into various offices across the United States. When the lily white, when racist white people saw this, then they formed the Lily White Party
within the Republican Party.
Within the Republican Party to drum out Africans, to drum out the freedmen.
Yeah.
And so, freedmen sympathizers.
Yeah. And so what I say to that is to those B-1 Americans, right, is that take heart. You don't have to hold your head down saying this is never going to happen. Complain about the Democratic Party. I'm trying to catch my words here. Simply complain about not being happy with the Democratic Party and not voting. So I tell you that if you don't vote, what you're essentially doing is you're casting a vote for the Republican Party without being involved in the whole process of nominating and getting people appointed and within the office. So for you non-voters, you're already participating in the Republican Party. Just come in.
No, you're casting a vote for the right is what you're casting.
Yeah, you're casting a vote for these crazies in the party, right? In the Republican Party, when you could just come into the party, help us get the right people, the rational people put in positions of power, right? And get those people elected. And those people will be the ones that can help push the agenda, push a B-1 agenda. You'd be surprised at the number of people who are open to it. It's simply,
you'd be surprised at the number of people who believe in freedom, opportunity, growth, and progress. That's the stuff that we can rally ourselves around and we can align with. There are other folks that align with our mission. The Democrats have it right when they say we should be building coalitions. Yes, coalitions need to be built. And we're saying we should be building coalitions as Black people who believe in freedom, opportunity, growth, and progress. We should be building coalitions with our white allies, with our Asian allies, with our Hispanic allies who believe in the same thing.
Yeah, and who are not going to require that we not talk about being B-1. Simple fact.
Well, whether somebody likes that or not, it's what we are.
Yeah. So, and you have been listening to On the Record with Kevin and Tiffany. Hey, we want to know what you think about this section of the show. Go visit us on YouTube at On the Record with Tiffany and drop us a comment where we are unapologetically giving a Black first radical Republican perspective.